This is the planning board meeting for August 20th, 2019. And we have our first item of business before us. I do want to mention though before we start that this meeting is being videotaped. That you are also welcome to make your own recording of the proceedings if you'd like, but if you do, let us know so that your recording apparatus doesn't cause any disruption to the meeting. So, what we're going to start with is 7 p.m. is the recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals on the application of Science Development and Permitting, LLC, for a variance and special permit under section 7.5, 10, 11.6, and 11.7 of the zoning bylaw for a 36-unit planned residential development at 1440, 1450, and 1146B Main Street. I think we have someone from the applicant here today to give us an update on the project. We've had this before us a few times before, but there have been revisions of late, and I think that we have not seen the definitive version of this latest plan. So, please proceed.
Good evening, Rich Harrington, engineer from Williams Garages. Jeff Ruda, applicant, and representative from Simon Associates, Elise Stone, architect. What you have in front of you is a revised plan set with definitive details of a plan residential development. And at the top left, you'll see the map that tells us number of dwelling units, etc., that you saw before. There's no change to that information. We have 36 units proposed, and we have the required open space, etc. As you scroll down, you'll see the development portion there, and you'll see Highland Street to the right. We have frontage along Main Street. We have Daniel Hayes Park along the front, which you'll see in more detail. And we also have Cedar Ridge on the left-hand side of this location here. We also have the town of Concord Lane on the back and the commuter rail over here in West Concord over this location. Junction Square open spaces here also, and their plans and deeds talk about keeping that open as a park. Next page, please. We've been receiving communication back from various departments and your consultants for the stormwater. We've reviewed those all, and we feel that we can address them with typical comments. This is your existing conditions plan, and basically what it shows is that along the main frontage of Main Street, we have the sidewalk, the sewer connection, and the water. And then we have two dwellings at this location at the top of the hill, a single family and a two-family. Your record cards show that there's a total of 6 bedrooms. As we talk further with the water district, I'm speaking with Alan Cathcart, there's going to be a net addition of 3 bedrooms to the town sewer, which is only 330 gallons per day, which is below the 1,000 gallon per day requirement that we don't have to go to the commission for that. We just have to have Alan do an administrative approval to change from 6 bedrooms to 9 bedrooms for the 3 dwellings. So we have 3 dwelling units today on town sewer from the sewer connection right to Main Street to the sidewalk, and we'll have 3 dwellings tomorrow with that project. The driveway is paved right now to serve the 2 dwellings off of Highland Street to the right. That will be converted to a 5-foot wide sidewalk. Curb cut that will still come into this area here, which will be the future park. You will also see that there's this existing path down the back, and we're going to keep that as well, make it handicap accessible, and that will be another access point for the walkability down to the back of that location. Topography-wise, we already looked at some great deal. Left to right is basically flat along Main Street. It's very level along the chain link fence of a 6-foot-high fence along Center Village. It begins to drop back down in elevation to the lower area of the back along the railroad tracks, where we have an isolated wetland that's been confirmed and reviewed by staff in the Natural Resources Commission. Next. This is just the record plan, which just shows that we've provided the common open space for Daniel Hayes Park, which is along Main Street, and also has this L-shaped connection so that you can walk from Highland down where the driveway is, and into the front, into the middle. And then we also have open space along the back. In addition, in talking in great detail with the abutters, the Marquis and the Center Village folks, there was a desire to not just only have the 20-foot setback along this edge, but to increase that setback. And the best way to increase that setback is to make it open space. So what we did was, that's why you see it kind of curving away in this detail, and then butting out to this location there. The area in the middle is just our own dedicated space. It's called common area, and basically you'll see the homes will be fronting around that, and we'll have that area as open grass plot of land, which our septic system is underneath. That's extra space. That's our land, our backyard, if you will, but we're letting people come on in as well. So that's an additional benefit that you don't typically see in a PRD. If you recall, we looked in great detail about the West Concord guidelines and what is the basic minimum requirements for a park or a patch of grass, if you will. And both our spaces meet those requirements. We talked about that before. It's about an acre of land from this point in here, not without the tails, and this area is about just over 25,000 square feet. So it's a nice area, very large area for active play in that location. Next to thank you. What we have is that basically, you saw this grading before, you saw the sidewalks, there's no change except for we had a double sidewalk here, entrance, one going down the back and one into the park. We simplified that with just one sidewalk where the pavement is today. So with that, there was minor adjustments to the grading, more detail, and if you recall before, we talked about the walkability of the project and making it accessible throughout the entire site. And the one way we have to do that is to stay below 5% grade. As you go from the sidewalk along Main Street, we're very level in the front where the homes are along the entrance. And then we drop down at 4.6% down this way, and also in this direction down to a low point from here. Lost my train of thought. So what we have is the nail station down the bottom, and we talked about the different types of dwelling styles, which Elise will talk about further. And we have the paved path down to the bottom so that you have a walkability and be able to travel throughout the entire property by foot or by bicycle and connect to existing sidewalks down to the town center of West Concord. In addition, we share a common boundary line with the town of Concord parcel, which is the open space that was the PRD next to us for Center Village. We have been asked to provide a connection to the Everett path, and we have done that. We're matching that grade exactly. In addition, this open space for junction over there, we share this common boundary as well, and we're providing a sidewalk path down to our boundary there also. And in addition, we have a turnaround here for fire and another backup with the application for the county homes. Our septic system is in the middle, and it's a pressure distribution. We received a communication from the Board of Health Director, and we responded immediately with our responses to that, and we feel that we addressed her concerns, and with the final detailed plans for the septic system, we believe that we can obtain approval for that design. That will be a total 90 bedrooms, which is over 10,000 gallons per day, and it'll be in compliance with Title V, the state rules, and also with the local Board of Health regulations. You'll see on another plan that we have the tanks down the bottom, and basically everything flows gravity downhill to the low point, and then we're required to pump it up and go left and right basically and distribute across the site. In addition, it's all sand and very good material. We have test pits across the site, and we have subsurface storage underneath the proposed roads. In addition, we're required to have overflows for those per your local town regulations, so you'll see that we did add some pipes outlet downhill. They're not needed, they're extra, because the rules require them. We have plenty of room in our subsurface drainage, and it's just a requirement that we need to provide those extra pipes just in case. Next slide. Thank you. So we have a 12-page set. We talked before on a concept plan, it only had 4. So we have additional detail. We have the 2 homes along Highland Street, along driveways at this location. Those 2 will be on town sewer along with this house here. So the existing sewer line that's there, we're going to reline that sewer line and it'll be good as new, and then we'll connect these 3 dwellings to the same location where the current 3 dwellings are flowing to. The water line is going to come off of the main, come down and loop around the project, and then up the path and tie into Highland Street. The reason for that is so that we don't have a dead end, and it improves the water quality and flow for the entire neighborhood, so that you have water moving throughout and not stagnant. We'll have fire hydrants along along the entrance and at detailed locations along the way as the right spacing for the fire chief. You'll start to see that we have a low point here with 2 catch basins, some pre-treatment, and then we have the isolated row and the chambers at that location. We have overflow pipes, then we have a roof drywall for these homes at this location, 2 more catch basins, subsurface drainage, 3 more catch basins, subsurface off the tail, low point, couple catch basins, 2 on the grass, 1 on the pavement, and those go at this location here. This left-hand side has that, what I said, basically connecting the dots, if you will. This one is connected here to there, and it daisy chains down to daylight down there. We're not anticipating any water going out there, so there was a concern from the Natural Resources Director that we needed to make sure that this was satisfactory to accept any overflows, and we're confident that there won't be overflows and that isolated wetland will behave properly, and we're not impacting it at all with our proposed development. On the right-hand side, when we have the Daniel Hayes Park, the existing tree and stone wall there that we're saving, there is no utilities at this location. What we're able to do is have the sewer come out the back of this and down the side, down to the low point where the tanks are, and then we have these coming gravity over there as well. So again, we have both arms, if you will, coming down to the center to the tanks, and then we'd be handling all the Title V system right in the middle portion of the site. In addition, we have underground electrical. We can come off the main road and across from the utility pole across the street, but we've been instructed to come off of the pole at the intersection of Highland and Main. And what we're going to do is just go in the grass strip and then down the path and then transformers, et cetera, all your typical underground utilities that you see throughout Concord, which is a requirement. We cannot have overhead wires. So in addition, we have some other subsurface roof dry wells. So the 2 houses along Highland Street has their own little roof dry well in their backyard, if you will. Same thing with these 2, and then these are grouped together there. One's in the back, and then a couple singles over there, and then more drainage. There's basically 9 areas where we have storage beneath the ground. 7 for catch basins, 2 extra for roof dry wells. They're oversized, we can trim them and make them a little bit smaller if we add a couple more structures, if that's a desire after the drainage. In addition to this, you'll notice that I said Williams Garages. With that, I used to be a different local firm, and we had different styles of doing things. We had different software. So you'll see in the stormwater report, you'll have the long-term pollution prevention, you'll have the construction management guidelines, the snow removal plan, and all the details that we usually had in a separate booklet are all in that other stormwater. So I apologize for not putting that out earlier. So we believe we do meet all those criteria. It is a condominium association, so what that means is we have 1 owner, 1 responsibility to take care of this place, and that's not the town. So the town is not responsible for plowing, maintaining the roads, or maintaining any of the landscaping on this project. We'll be taking care of and having these systems for the septic inspected every 3 years because it is a condominium, and so you'll have very detailed reports on file that this is behaving properly and that it is functioning to the way that it's designed. In addition, we have a 24-foot wide driveway, looking around with 20-foot stubs off the back, left and right, for pavement. The snow will be plowed to the edges of the pavement on each side. The sidewalk is along the other side perimeter, so there'll be no parking along the sidewalk side, only on the interior loop, per the direction of the fire department. In addition, we talked about what's the best project for this site. This has evolved, as you know, with many meetings with the planning board, and we thank the neighborhoods and other key members of the town that have provided input to make this plan the way it is today. With that said, we believe that the earth removal that has to be taken off this site to create this neighborhood is the minimum required. And that is based on the fact that we're meeting the grades left to right in respecting the neighbors that are closest to us, which are the single-family dwellings. We're harmonious with them because we're matching them with single-family dwellings on the streetscapes. As we move down the left-hand side, we're matching duplexes with the duplexes on the left. and then we have other single families at this location. Like I said, we can't go over 5%, so that grade's fixed in both locations, so that every front door, you can get accessible to every path from to the left, to the right, to Highland, over to the park, and back around again. So it's a very functional project that we believe meets all the requirements that the West Concord guidelines have provided, and also the bridge to 2030 that we spoke about at the previous meeting. We are within a half-mile radius of the train in West Concord Center, and this will provide the customers the walkability and minimize the vehicles by walk down to the amenities in town and be part of this neighborhood. With that, I think there's a couple more sheets just to kind of buzz through Elizabeth. We talked about, this is just your plan profiles, which shows the grades going down. You can keep going, Elizabeth. And then there's another, next sheet is the bottom part of the profile with the low point down here, so we're going back up to 4.6%. And you can keep going. And so this is the plan profiles. All these details are on your engineering website, so all the notes, etc., for all the pavements, sidewalks, tanks, catch basins. And then the last sheet is all our subsurface stormwater and all the requirements for that. Erosion and sedimentation control plans. We talked about having the protection of the mature trees in Daniel Hayes Park. And then Kim Ahern also provided a tree protection detail as well. And these are just more catch basins, silt sacks, all the standard text and guidelines that are from your engineering department. And that basically completes the entire plan set that we have. And I mentioned that we had the Board of Health response. We talked to Water and Sewer. We're comfortable that we can meet their requirements. There were some comments from the town planner that we believe we can also address. And in regards to some of the concerns about what's public, what's the best for this open space, typically this type of development has a hybrid type of open space where the park is very beneficial. It's along Main Street, and that is a valuable public open space, if you will, in this area here. Is there a need for public access along the sides? Probably not, because it is more to protect the abutters. There's a 6-foot high fence that the abutters wanted to keep, so there's no connection over here. We did offer that in earlier versions, but it was decided that that was not a benefit for them. So we're maintaining the trees along the top. We have a flat area for additional landscaping along this. And by lowering an elevation over here for these homes, we're also protecting the views across the street, which we also had some comments on there as well. So you're basically closing the curtain once we lower that area when you're looking in this direction here. And what I'd like to do is basically allow the, is it the top at least, or is it? Do you want to go through anything? The architectural plans on the file?
Yeah, it should be.
So these Stover updated her plans based on the last conversation of the meetings, and she can go into detail about. What you'll find is there is detailed elevations and dimensions along all these sides of the buildings, and we updated our plans accordingly for that.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Elise Stone, I'm the architect of the project. So most of the elevations you've seen at the last meeting, but what I did is I took all the plans and I developed them so that all the plans have elevations, and especially with the first series, we can kind of go through A1, A2, A3. What I tried to show is these are the single family dwellings and just the different varieties. So we'll have the 3 along Main Street will all be different. So this was A1. Maybe next. So these are, this is the side going in from the garage. So these are just the 4 elevations of A1. So we'll just continue through to A2. So each plan is slightly different. I tried to use elements that you see around Concord so that they all looked a little different. They're similar square footage, but you know, using bays and porches and that. trying to get the garages to be back from the houses, you know, using kind of village colonial type architecture. So these are, we gave them side entrances, especially with the side loading garages. Along Main Street, all the garages will be side loading, so you won't see the garages from Main Street. So we can go down to A3 now. And keep going. So that was the second, and here's the, okay, this is A3, so we've used a hip roof. There's a lot of hip roofs around West Concord with just a front porch, not the wraparound porch, dormers on the garage, etc. On some of them, we've gone over the garages, and some of them we haven't, to keep the profile a little lower. So A1, A2, A3, you'll see them sprinkled throughout, and you know, the idea is that we really are going to vary them, you know, all the ones shown in the plan. So there'll be different sidings and colors and roofs and porches. So those are the A units. The B units, keep going, these are just the 4 elevations of the A3s. So the next units are the B units, and originally, if you remember, we had the B units as duplexes, and what we did, and they're mostly along the back of the site, which are going to be very hard to see from Main Street. I don't think, Rich, you'll ever see the back at all. But, so they're going to be closer together, and we separated them, so some of them have 1-car garages, and some of them have 2-car garages. And again, you know, using a variety of siding, styles, windows, etc. We will vary them. So I thought of this as neighborhoods. One of my daughters lives in Cambridge, and you drive down her street and you see how triple deckers have been customized over the years, and you know, they're all the same, but they're all do look different at this point. So I looked at that as this type of neighborhood along the back. So the B units, there's B1 and B2, and they can also go, you know, we could vary it going over the garages and not. And these are 3 bedrooms and 2 bedroom units. So that we can go through these. So we just showed, and some of the B units, because the way the land drops off in the back, will be walkouts. So there will be some walkout opportunities. This will be down by the, like the train overlooking there. But, you know, it will give them some lower level living space. Again, using bays and trying to make it attractive from the back as well, so it didn't look too boxy. So those are the B units. So the next units we have are the C units. And these are the smallest units, and these are the duplexes with single-car garages. And we put the garages in the middle so that they could have the most separation as the living units. And they could feel like you could have light on 3 sides for the dwelling, you know, for each unit. These units, one will have a master on the first floor. They can actually vary. It depends what the demand is. They could both have masters on the first floor, or they could, you know, there's a master above. These are 2-bedroom units. So for the single person, downsizing couple, it is a single-car garage, but having them look a little more cottagey. These are on the left side, and again, to keep a low profile towards, you know, the duplexes that are the existing village there. So we can show these. So when I showed this one, I did show on the plan as if, you know, one has the master above and one has the first floor master. Did we already go by that? The plan? So those are the bags. Those are the sides. So this is the first floor plan. So you can see the one on the left, it doesn't go out as much, but you have the master. Oh no, I'm sorry, this is not it. This is the next unit. So we must have gone by that.
Do you want the floor plan?
Yeah, maybe show the floor plan of C. The first floor plan. So those are the second floor. So here are the first floor. So the one on the left has the master on the first floor, and the one on the right is the master on the second floor. And those are about 1,700, 1,800 square feet. so we can go through. So then the last unit are the D&E units, and the D&E units, there's 2 of them. Those are also a duplex, and it's a duplex where you enter one duplex on the front to the bottom left, and the other unit you enter on the right. So the one on the right is a smaller unit that has a single car garage, and the one on the left has the 2-car garage. And so really, when you look at it, it doesn't look like like a duplex per se. And those 2 are both on the corners. So we can show the next one. So the one on the right is a 2-bedroom unit, and the one on the left is a 3-bedroom unit. So again, just to try to get the architecture, so it doesn't feel, to try to take away from all the garage doors together. So I think those are all the units.
One additional item, based on the peaks of the roof lines of the different styles in the finished grades of the pavement based on the accessibility from Main Street, we also have the tables updated for the heights of each building. And you'll see that there's a height of one building of only 10 feet as in the center village, because that's in the cut. And we already reached an agreement that there would be some that are higher at the bottom of the base of the hill, based again on those grades. And so that table's been updated as part of the package as well. If there's any questions about that. And that's mentioned in the plans report also. Questions from the board?
So if we look at the town planner's report that came up today, some of the open issues, and one that I don't think that you addressed directly, you did refer to snow, but you didn't really talk about the snow removal plan for the site, so that was one of the open issues that was listed. And storage. Certainly, snow storage.
Every front yard is basically has 20 feet of grass in front of it. So we have parking in front of the garage door, so there'll be snow storage along each side of the road. There'll be also storage within the center of the bail station as well. And then we'll have the provisions that if the snow does get piled up too badly, we can have it removed from the site or moved around the site so that we have the entire pavement cleared for fight.
So it'd be like a berm of snow that if someone plows off of the road, just be in.
Well, it's no different than the rest of the neighborhood, as the way I see it, is because you do have your typical front yards of 20 feet, like you do for a regular house lot on highway. So it's basically the same as the other neighborhood, but we'll be obligated to monitor it.
Okay. Another question is that there's the soil removal, and I thought I had heard from the most recent review that we did that the amount of soil to be removed had been reduced because instead more soil was being moved around on the site rather than trucked off site. But I did look back at the planner's report from today versus the original planner's report. I didn't see any difference. So I was just curious, are there any differences in the number of cubic yards to be removed?
There will be a different number. What we want to do is get back to you in front today and have you agree that this is the best plan possible and it's the way it needs to be to develop the site. And then we can provide the final number. So it's more of, we did cut a little bit more towards Center Village than the previous number. So we would update that. And we did have us add some more fill in the back, so from the previous design.
Okay, and then, sorry to be monopolizing here, but we can move around.
Before you move on to that, in other developments where they do have a very steep grade, are there other ways to design the layout so that you don't have to remove so much? Like, is it consolidating the units, or what are other ways that developments have been formed so that there's not so much removal?
There's different requirements for different projects, and so this criteria for this is to stay under the 5% accessibility. If it's a subdivision road, we can go to 7%, so you can drop it down quicker, so that you don't have to have as much fill or grading. And so different types of developments have different parameters.
So your main guideline was maintaining the sidewalk grade or the road grade.
Yes.
What about if the units were clustered in different areas? Would that have made any difference?
It does make a difference, and we did go through many of those iterations. For instance, if you put some more in the front, it's not as bad, but then there's a desire not to have as many houses along Main Street. So that streetscape was more important than other parameters. So it's a systems approach, if you will, on what's the best for this project and what does it hit best with all the objectives.
So the next one is that the plan currently calls for a number of walkout basements. And I'm just curious about, first of all, the number of units with the walkout. Secondly, what is the expected use? Is that finished space? And, how is that going to be used?
I think there's a request for us to provide an additional floor plan for the basement from Elise. We eliminated any walkouts along here, we added some fill there. It's just along the edge of the wetlands, I believe, where the walkouts are. And then she could talk about the space or any other details, but.
So how many units then?
Around 8 or so, I'm thinking,
Yeah, I got it.
8 with walkout.
yes.
Okay.
And then partial walkouts, so, the grades are coming up around the sides.
Sure.
There'll be playrooms, it's not, no additional bedrooms. There'll be a master deed restriction in the condominium, and we'll itemize each dwelling unit, once it's built, how many bedrooms for each one.
Will there be any baths in
Yes, that's an allowed thing to have in there, yes.
So I saw a reference somewhere that the project's 1 bedroom short of needing a groundwater discharge permit. So my question is, the way that you assess number of bedrooms, is that specified in the regulations, the DEP regulations that you're trying to calculate number of bedrooms? Is that all per the regulations, or how do you calculate what's considered a bedroom or not? Per the state regulations.
The state regulations that are applicable to this is Title V, and a house is a minimum bedroom design of 3, and you can go up to 90 bedrooms on a property, on one facility. So we're at 90 bedrooms, and I responded back to that Board of Health letter saying that it does meet the criteria, so it is Title V. That's just hey, we're at number 90, and we have provisions to make sure it's not gonna go over 90, so it's at 90 maximum, will be under Title V, and in compliance with the local Board of Health rules also.
So are you saying that the way that you calculate bedrooms for the groundwater discharge permit is the same as Title V?
Yes, yes, you can just, but that's not a applicable regulation here, that's just the Board of Health Director just kind of adding additional content that wasn't necessary in the letter.
Well, it's potentially applicable if you have a bedroom, right?
No, it's not a potential,
Oh, sorry.
we're stopping at 90.
Oh, I see.
That's the rule set.
Okay, so the next thing is that we just had a memo from the Natural Resources Director.
Yes.
And commenting about the common space, and I just wondered if you had any response. I know it just came out, so it hasn't been a lot of time, but.
Yes, I do. This letter a rendition of this letter was also in front of you when we talked about moving everything around and what was the best picture for everybody. This is somewhat of a one way of looking at it, and the public access and the value for the public is in the park area. She's referring to the area along this side here where we have common open space, and that was very important to the abutters in the screening, and we feel that that's in keeping with the regulations as well. We also have a situation where wetlands are allowed in the common open space. Your current master plan, if you will, shows this property, it shows the wetlands there. It talks about it being there when you're looking at it as being a cluster of property. And that criteria, it's isolated. You can walk down there, we do have access there. It'll be available for skating in the wintertime or for other aspects during the winter and in other months. So we feel that that is valuable in that location. This is very valuable for the public to use also. This is also valuable as open space for the harmony with the neighborhood and conservation purposes. We're in agreement with her that it shouldn't be under a conservation restriction just because it's in the zone C. Usually they think in the zone A's and B's, they get involved with conservation restrictions because they're larger plots of land with natural resource features. So this would be a perpetual restriction, and that would just be monitored in a similar manner, but not a conservation restriction. That is the conservation agent would have to look at.
And then could you review, again, the square footage or acreage of the different sections of the common open space that are being provided? So the peripheral, the wetlands, and the, isolated wetland is the park / green.
Certainly. A few meetings ago, after reviewing the West Concord guidelines for park, we made sure that the criteria, the lines associated with the area got those dimensions. And so this is over about an acre of land in this shape here. And then we have a connection down the side in common with the open space on the abutting property. And there's also open space along the abutting property of Center Village. And in my experience, it's always best to marry up each side of the wall on the fence with open space and have that common area as opposed to the house being closer. So this will be a common area, then we have a 20-foot strip around the back, and then we have the wetland area that will be common open space as well. And that meets, as you know what the rules say, it says everything that's not a building or reserved for other aspects of access can be common open space, and you just need 25%. So we are at 33%, so we have extra than what's needed. And that's because as you go around the perimeter, it just makes sense to have one continuous piece of land called open space as opposed to different segments. So that's why we have the extra land. And it's also to protect the frontage along Main Street so that you don't have extra driveways coming off the streetscape, and then the condominium can be in control of that as well.
And can you speak to the grade that's in the front park area there? I can't really make it out.
Certainly.
What that is.
You refer to this area here?
Yeah, the grade further back.
Right here. So what we have right now is the grade climbs up to about a 170 to the existing homes. I think it's about 166 to this high point over here. And so then when we start at 156 and make the climb down, we're about 154. So you're going about a 12-foot drop or so in that location. So we have a cut slope there. And what that's going to do is basically it's an earthen berm that will maintain mature trees plus additional landscaping so that when you're driving in this direction from Highland, you're going to see that same curtain close with the vegetation. And then when you come this way also, you're going to see that park area in the screening. So these homes will be set down. And then we have the sidewalk catching back to the grade at this location and that location there.
So how much flat open space is that?
So there's probably that area, almost an acre. You know, it's probably 30,000 square feet. So it's over 100 feet left to right. And then we have the mature trees in the loop. And this is more your active play area, which is our common area. So this is more of the park where it's more, you know, in keeping with other parks that you have in
Is
the
that
area.
flat down there?
Yes, left to right there, yep. You can run for a touchdown on that piece of grass.
So going back to common open space, you mentioned the 25% requirement. There's also in 10.2, 9.1, all the various things that would be the goals of the open space. And
Certainly.
you saw the planner's memo and kind of said no, 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 and no. Could you address?
And
why
we agree, there's pretty much that's a paintbrush across the entire town. So we're trying to, how does that apply to a zone C place? What we have is we have the value of the park, we have the conservation aspects, and the respect of the neighbors, along with the conservation of the back as well. And so without, again, to additional detail, but those parameters are the most important for this. And when you're in more of a smaller lots, city feel, you're not looking for that 50-foot dimension, 10, 20 feet is at a premium also. So this meets that goal of providing key locations where the open space is, I believe, based on all the locations of the abutting decks. And we turned our houses so we're not looking at each other. And so a tremendous amount of thought went into the people around the property, our people, and then also making it the best possible for the open space.
Yeah, you can tell a tremendous amount of thought went into it, and you seem to sort of maximize where it's put, given the constraints of the topography of the lot and the incredibly high density of houses that you want to be able to put in.
Well, what we have is when we sit down as an engineer, you have like it sounds like the basic requirements. So the basic is 26. The time before, there wasn't really happiness with the 26% of open space. So we made it 33%. And we feel that made a better buffer along the perimeter. And at the last meeting that we had with the board, there was acceptance on this plan, and then we left and came back, and you basically have the same picture.
I just want to, the standards in 10291, they set a pretty high bar for what's considered open space under the regulations. I disagree that it's just 25% or 33%. I think that there's a very clear intent to have a close consideration of the quality of open space that's provided. And that's at the basis of the PRD regulations, is that you have the allowance for this higher density, but then in return, there's something that's a really nice quality provision to the town and the neighborhood, which is this open space. And I think that the examples given in the regulations set a relatively high bar, and I think that that test has been met by other nearby projects, and I don't see that same quality here. What I see here is the park's nice. Maybe there's some area of the park that is, we don't dispute that that's high quality open space that should go to your calculation. The other areas seem perimeter areas that are more or less part of your development that you need to make those houses desirable to live in. I don't see those perimeter areas as counting towards your calculation. Furthermore, the wetland in the back can't be, as I understand it, it's being developed to its maximum extent under the regulations, so that can't be developed anyways. So I guess, I think this point about the open space is key, because this is the key underpinning to the intent of the regulation about what a PRD should be.
Certainly, we agree. We can take that under advisement, and we just got the report today, so we could have had a better response, but if we can come back with a detailed thought-out response to that.
Okay, and perhaps talking to the natural, is the intent that the natural hold the conservation restriction?
No, not on this property.
Okay, so what is the intent for the?
It would be held under a perpetual restriction or another vehicle, if you will. It's protected the same way. It's whether you, I, or someone in the audience is looking at it and making sure it's safe. So it's just, we've had many projects where we understand that this is not the applicable site for conservation restriction.
I see. Okay, thank you.
One of the things we're going to need to talk about or rule upon is the diversity of dwelling units. And so when we look at the criteria for the diversity of dwelling units, it's talking about the mix in terms of the number of bedrooms that are available, the price or rental rates of the units, and 2 or 3 styles of units, single family, 2-family, or multifamily. I think that Elise was able to address the number of bedrooms. I guess they range from 2-bedroom to 4-bedroom units. And then she also addressed the question of the 2 styles, the single family and the duplex styles that are available.
Yes.
Although it'd be nice to just sort of recap the numbers there. But then the thing that I have not heard is the diversity in terms of the price or rental rates and use. I assume that these are all condominiums, so they'll be all sold, they won't be rented.
Correct.
But that, what is the diversity in terms of prices that's expected?
It's basically, it'll be dictated by the market. It's anticipated it's 800,000 to 1.3 million, based on the feedback and the realtors involved in the project. And what your reports also say, the desirability of Concord and things of that nature, that the shortage of housing.
So is that what you guys, diversity?
And-
Well,
Price
yeah,
range or-
so.
So that's the base, those are the
diversity,
basic
what
units,
we-
plus the affordable unit would be priced accordingly per those guidelines.
Right, so
which
there's
is
one
much lower.
affordable unit that will be in
Yes.
the affordable bucket, and then the others will be market rate units, but relative to their sizes, priced accordingly, and their position in the development. So, and so they would have a range of price between approximately 800,000 and 1.3 million, based upon the current market conditions.
Right.
Market price like lobster.
Pretty,
but-
peanut butter jelly, like, you know, yes, yes, it's, the market dictates that unfortunately, and
Sure. I'm just trying to understand sort of the range involved here, because I think that's the intent of the bylaw, is to really ensure that there's a range of units being offered that
Yes.
appeal to a different, different demographics, if you will.
absolutely, and if you recall, we had slides back from the April 2nd meeting, which we have here as well, they might be able, she might be able to call them up, but the diversity of housing was 39% of the units are now one-car garages, as opposed to a two-car garage. And then we also had 22% of the units are under 2,000 square feet. We might have to talk to Elizabeth about what that interpretation is of, probably excluding the basement, that part of it. And then there's also 33% of the units are first floor master bedrooms. So it's hitting different demographics or criteria of the empty nester with the first floor master. Still have the bedroom up, if that's the case, with the different age groups, and also for families and 1 or 2 people. So it's very variable. It allows for that mix of everybody being right down the street from the train and et cetera to benefit from this project.
Other questions from the board?
Just one small question, on the trail connections on the back.
Yes.
I believe you went through this last time, but can you just point out, so it would be coming into the drive,
Yes.
and then on the other side?
We'd be coming up at this location here and coming down. We can carry it down further, but right now we match the existing grade there.
And there's not an existing path on that other private lot?
No, if you look at their plan of record, it says maintain as an open park, it's open space, and I'm not sure.
Have you reached out to them about the connection of a park? Excuse me, of a path?
We have not, that was an early ask by the planning director, was to try to allow town land to connect to this open space parcel. And so we said, absolutely, we'll provide that. And so we've been able to maintain that through every redesign that we had.
But you haven't reached out to the abutter?
I guess we can do that additional investigation.
Karen?
I do have one other question, sorry. Regarding the logistics of removing the earth, one of the questions raised was the number of trucks that we have to go. At what point do you specify the plan for earth removal? How many trucks, where they go, how they,
You'll have that at the next meeting.
And just to comment, I would love to, it would be really important for the next meeting to see those basement plans, including ceiling heights, whether there's any bathrooms or anything in the basements.
Certainly.
I mean, I would just like to address that.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, usually with basements and developments like this, things like Black Birch, we only finish basements when they said they wanted to finish basement after they were bought. So they were just really, I mean, I'll definitely provide the basement plans, but they really are just open plans with an area for mechanical room. We would never show a bathroom unless it was asked for by the.
And the reason I'm curious is because you're out one bedroom away from that limit, right? So I'm very, sometimes we see on plans, and I've not seen them here, but you see these magic room, these these bonus rooms, sometimes they're called. And I know we're not gonna see that on the basement plan, but I wanna get an idea of the look and feel to see how easy it would be for somebody to stay 1, 2, you know, bedrooms in the basement.
Yeah, there's absolutely no bonus rooms in this, in any of these plans. And in any basement, you could put a bedroom. These are just gonna be open plans. So we will show them, and there's no intent to put any bathrooms in basements at this point.
Okay, any other questions from the board at the moment? All right, so we also have the outside consultant that reviews the stormwater plan, and we'd like to hear from him at this point, who's available also for questions, but I don't know if you had a statement that you'd like to start off with, which is reviewing your analysis of their plan. Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you. My name is Christopher Sayers, I'm from GPI.
Closer to the mic, please.
Yep. One of our fellow engineers at GPI did the review comments and memo. I'm just here filling in for her tonight, so hopefully I will be able to answer any of your questions. Is this better? Smart guy.
I don't want you talking bad about him. What do you want?
Yeah, we also have this wired mic over here.
Well, if everyone can hear me, I can just speak a little louder. All right, so GPI, we're contracted by the city to review the project for compliance with the Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook, the Wetlands Protection Act, the town stormwater standards,
The audience, it might be better.
the public works design standards. Thank you. Better? All right, so I'm not going to go through comments one by one, but I'll just kind of go through the overarching comments that we did have. So one of the big issues on this site was the amount of excavation. So we're requesting the applicant to provide the depth of groundwater at each test hole, which is a requirement of the town of Concord. And this will be important at the subsurface infiltration structures, because we need to have that either assumed or interpolated depth between the groundwater and the bottom of those proposed infiltration to make sure that the infiltration will work as designed. There's also a requirement of the standards to provide a rational method divide plan, which basically is to size all the drainage pipes on site. So the HydroCAD has been done for the stormwater analysis, but the town would still like to see, just to ensure that the pipe sizing is correct and will handle the larger storms. The long-term operation and maintenance plan was submitted and reviewed. We would request that an additional plan would be included outlining the location and access points to all the proposed BMPs. There's a lot of underground storage and different access points, and you don't want the maintenance to be missed on any of these locations. So a plan to ensure that everything is taken care of would be required. There were some discrepancies between the utility plans and the plans or profiles and the utility plans. So we've made multiple comments to the design engineer to get those straightened out, just to provide a full review of the stormwater management system and to ensure that it will act as designed. And the whole project is basically being infiltrated through the subsurface. So as part of that, the soil test pits are a very important aspect of this project. So the material that was analyzed was loamy sand and sands, and the exfiltration rates were 8.27, whereas sometimes the loamy sand should be analyzed at a 2.1, so we would want to see some additional information there to make sure that the infiltration rates are as designed. We had a few inconsistencies with the size of the stormwater structures between the HydroCAD and the plans. And we just want to make sure that the actual sizes are correct. As you can see, it's a very tight site. There's a lot of subsurface utilities, whether it be sewer, stormwater, electric. So we just want to make sure that this project can be built as designed. And we're looking at the HydroCAD model, did not include some of the overflows and their respective discharges to the resource areas. As the engineer described in his presentation, those will, in 100-year storms, should not be flowing. However, we do want to see those pipes in the analysis just to get a full picture of how the system will operate. So we need just some additional clarifications in order to do a proper design review. The information will be needed to determine the long-term effectiveness of this system. I mean, it's a complicated system, and you do want to make sure that everything is designed correctly and will operate in the long term. And, on a project of this scale, the operation and maintenance is one of the most important things, whereas everything's underground. You do not see the infiltration rates, you do not see any problems, the sediment accumulating, so a very detailed operation and maintenance plan will be required. So that's a brief synopsis of the comments that we had. So I'll take any questions.
Sure. Well, first, I just wondered if the applicant had any comments that they'd like to make upon that.
Sure. Basically, Elizabeth has a thumb drive, but I turned on the layer that had all the groundwater test pits on that map. In regards to each catch basin, we have that on the proposed watershed map. It's just not called the rational plan map. So each flow, each catch basin is itemized. It's just a duplication of catch basin, pre-treatment, isolated row, and then a line of chambers for storage. So it's very simplified. We did recognize the overflow pipes. It just didn't get up to that elevation to produce water cascading over for them to see. So we'll revise the letter. We agree there are some labels that we have to do, and we'll get a clean bill of health within the next letter back from them, I believe. There's nothing show-stopping. It's typical when we're moving things around a little bit to make it the best.
Okay. I think now, yes, Nathan.
Yes, would you also be able to address, I know the Board of Health mentioned the drainage for Zone A and maintenance and repairs that need to be done to that, and how you plan to address that should that arise?
I'd really like to revise a letter and get rid of about 5 comments because, I'm not being rude, but it's just, I'm being polite. Typically, what we have is, we did address the letter, and in the letter, we basically said, she said, if you use heavy equipment around the backs of the houses, she has a concern. And our reply is based on the 20+ years of experiences, we use, if there was a concern or a maintenance aspect, we'd be using a smaller machine so that could just drive across the lawn. And at the end of each line, there's a clean out screw cap. So really all we need to check that is a shovel and a wrench, plumber's wrench. So everything that's happening over that area for maintenance and inspections every 3 years can be done with minimal disturbance. And so I agree, they're comments that are typical, but they meet all the setbacks of Title V and the local regulations. And that's what we go by when we design the clusters. We meet the requirements and we keep going and meet the next requirement. So we believe it's satisfactory that we can comply with all our concerns. It's more just comments.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think at this point, we've gotten our input from the applicant. And I just want to remind sort of everyone what our job is here. So we've been through several rounds of discussions with the applicant. And as the planning board, our job is to provide a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals for whether they should grant a special permit for this project And also, just to provide additional color, is that if we didn't feel that it should be granted in the current form, what modifications that we would expect to be made in order to make it something that we feel that would fit within the spirit and the letter of our bylaw. But before, and what we will do is we'll actually march through each of the criteria in order to give our planning director some guidance in terms of the report that she's going to write up, our draft recommendation, which we will then review at our next meeting along with the additional inputs that we'll get from the applicant. So that just give you a little sense of where we are in the process and what we expect to proceed with from here. But I think that now, before we go through those deliberations, this is a good time to hear comments from the public. Now, once again, I'd just like to keep in mind that we've got a lot of people here, that we've been talking for about an hour, and we're by no means done, but that there have been comments made in the past, there have been letters received, there's lots of input that we've gotten from the community, and so what we especially appreciate is any new perspectives or insights based upon either new information that we have received or things that we haven't yet considered. But repeated comments are of little value for all of us in terms of the use of our time tonight. So I welcome members of the public who do have such input to step forward. When you do, announce your name and your address, and then please share your remarks. Thank you. Yeah, we'll give you a wired mic so you can actually be heard. Yeah, I didn't mean to scare everybody off completely. So feel free if you would like to go to the podium.
Sure. 102 Prairie Street. Just a quick question that I have, that the sewer system, he said that they would test it, they would use just small equipment and a wrench and so forth, but what if it failed and you needed to redo something? I was just wondering what would happen then if you needed heavy equipment and all the houses are sort of blocking that septic area.
I don't know if the applicant would like to respond just briefly.
I have to wait for you to say, could you answer the
sorry.
question?
To just get these comments, well, maybe we'll queue them up, and then we'll do a big, yeah. Okay, that sounds good.
It can be repaired where it is with the reserve area, and it's just a construction scheduling.
Krista Collins, 55 Highland Street, and I have a comment and just two. Sorry, Krista Collins, 55 Highland Street. I have a comment and a couple of questions for clarification. Regarding snow removal, I know we already have a hard time figuring out where to put all the snow on Highland Street, and I think if we're planning for 1890s weather in 2019, we're going to run into some pretty serious problems. So I have some concerns about snow removal and stormwater for those same reasons. Regarding the conservation restriction, and I think I agree with you that it's not a great candidate for a conservation restriction, but I'm just not sure what other perpetual mechanism there is for protecting open space, because a deed restriction would be limited to 30 years and would have to be renewed.
We'll queue that question up.
Okay, and then the last one was, you mentioned that there was you had provisions for ensuring that the number of bedrooms wouldn't go over 90. Could you be more specific about what those provisions are? Thanks.
Chairman?
One more quick question. Jerry Kleiner, 57 Central Street. Average Concord citizen. I'm curious if anybody mentioned anything about PERS ratings or sustainability criteria. curious about HERS ratings, energy efficiency and sustainability criterion of the development.
This side is the non-white side.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's, yeah.
Oh, well, go.
Do you want us to go to the?
Yeah, right over there, yeah. We'll let this side get a few comments in. All right, go ahead. Yeah.
Cynthia Katz, 20 Conant Street. I'm wondering why there's only one affordable housing unit as part of this, given that for us to maintain our number, we need to be at 10%, and 10% of 38 would be 3.8, or rounded up would be 4. So I'm wondering why there aren't 4 affordable units as part of this project to keep us on pace for 40 feet.
Hi, I'm Pamela Talbot, 188 Conant Street. Just to pick up on Cynthia's point, having been a 6-year member of the Conservation Commission in my many years in Concord, one of the things we always wanted to avoid in wetlands was the monoculture. And with the prices of these units and no affordable housing, I think this is a monoculture. Our children won't be able to live here, our librarians, our policemen, our teachers. I don't want to live like this. So that's my comment. And my question is, this whole part of Concord is sewered, and I'm sorry if you've already been through this, but why isn't this being tied into public sewer? And I think maybe that's a loaded question, because I'm suspecting the answer is because it's such a huge development that the sewer can't support it. And that speaks for itself. That maybe there's a reason, if you can't tie into sewer, that you should be thinking about jamming 36 units on what right now is a beautiful space to walk by that could support some residences that normal people could live in.
I want to warn people, this is not a rally. So, we really like to eliminate any kinds of applause or any other kinds of emotional response as possible.
I don't ever call meeting.
Right, it's like town meeting.
My name is Robin Clemens. I'm from out of town. I'm a social justice activist. My question is, are any of you environmentalists or environmental engineers, and have they done an environmental impact study or analysis of this project at all? Vis-a-vis, you know, the town or the state environmental impact analysis of the project?
I mean, it's not required by our bylaw.
Oh, I think you should consider that, because I have one plan.
Wally Johnston, 1479 Main Street. Member of the school committee, but speaking for myself, but with intimate knowledge of school issues. And I just think it's important to point out the development of this size and this space will be a significant burden on the schools. And I suspect it will have an adverse impact on the tax rolls when all is said and done. Given the current makeup of the school population, it may be the thing that tips the balance in us having to go through a redistricting exercise. I know those aren't parts of the bylaw. I think it's unfortunate when you look through the report that comes from the planning department that there's nothing in there about schools, but that's what it is. I would agree with the things that have been said. I live across the street from where this development would be done. I think it's totally out of character for the neighborhood.
Hello, I'm Mark Galis, 62 Prescott Road. As far as I'm aware, this site as it currently exists is the largest stand of mature trees in the close proximity to West Concord Center. So I think that this project that requires clearing all of those is going to be a significant detriment to the community in terms of air quality, heat, heat zone aggravation, noise, etc. So we have a tree preservation bylaw. I would like to request that the planning board and zoning board of appeals make sure that the planning department make sure that the calculations are done so that at least under that bylaw, which in this case I think would apply to the front setback and the side setbacks of the single property, that an appropriate mitigation be done. And in fact, I think that for PRD, requesting excess density from one unit on the plot to, dozens of units on the plot, that they should actually exceed that. Second point is, with regard to the stormwater runoff and hydrology, just would hope that the consultant and also the engineer of the applicant would make sure that the additional uncertainties introduced by the fact of the heavy grading, which is going to change flows there, that I'm not sure that using the existing water table as a baseline is going to give a very accurate assessment of what will really happen when this is built and you have a big storm. So I think you need additional factor of safety, and the best thing to do would be to significantly reduce the number of units. Then we could save more trees and reduce the risk of flooding. Thank you.
Paul Winkler, 1414 Main Street, Butter, Cross Island. The statement that people should be aware that are coming more recently to this process is, as was stated before, it's been 2 years of meetings, both with the community, particularly on Highland Street. Improvements have been made to the project. It is very important that there is no exit if plans are revised onto Highland Street. Speaking then as a butter, don't know whether this is the right venue, but talking about various restrictions during construction. To be part of the committee's recommendations is probably a standard set to help with the abutters. So construction traffic and parking on Highland during construction, seismic and air quality monitoring, potentially with some amount of pre-checking, would be extremely useful. Pest control, prior notice to any demolition, particularly blasting, noise monitoring, and then restrictions on work hours. I'm sure the board has other standard restrictions that you'd like to see. Thank you.
Gregory McGuire Humans on Upland Road, number 63. I feel like the high schooler who has been skipping class, and I've come and I don't understand much of what I've heard today because this is the review. So I have to cram. And I've been trying to cram, but cram is the word that comes to mind. I don't know why we have to have 36 units, a parcel this size, in the part of town which has already sustained very dense development in the last 12 to 15 years, including those 5-story buildings in Walden Woods, which, other than the Emerson Hospital, I think, are the tallest buildings in Concord. I don't know why West Concord also seems to have to shoulder the brunt of the development of Concord disproportionately, I believe, and why we are asked to look at a treed lot and shrug our shoulders at the notion of 36 more units coming in such a small space. The developer has something to gain. And the developer has talked about the benefit of the open spaces, 25 to 33%. It is not as clear to me what the cost to Concord in general and to West Concord in particular is implicated by development of this size and density.
Good cramming.
Ellen Westman, 206 Prairie Street. I won't repeat what other people have said about the school, but I am concerned about another aspect of the impact on the tax and redistricting. There has been a comment about this would be great for retirees or empty nesters. I wonder if you were considered approaching the FinCom in terms of their tax sustainability goals and seeing how this might change that profile. Because I think that there is a tipping point that we have to be concerned about. And also would love to have a redo of the traffic study. I believe it was done in June. And I think that there is not the time of year to do that. It'd be better if we had done this, or it had been conducted in April or October, along with the traffic study of what's going to happen with the 3-year, I think, construction time frame. I think it's going to be construction. And as a parallel road, we are expecting lots of traffic to sidestep Main Street and come down a street that has a lot of kids walking to the school.
Hi, Jack Madigan, 215 Prairie Street. The definition for the PRD is the overall site design and amenities should enhance the quality of living for the residents of the development, the immediate neighborhood, and the town generally. I just do not believe that the town is getting any benefit from these parks. We have a small park in the front, and then the one that is behind all the homes is literally the leaching field, which they need to include anyways. The 36 houses has been on this, has been what the development has been all along. I don't see any changes other than the architecture, which has improved, but it's still 36 units, which is much too many for this site. We have, to the left of this, we have a 2.3 acre conservation site, and then we have the 1+ acre at Junction Square, which there's no connection other than a sidewalk between the two. I mean, we should be considering that from a town standpoint of connecting those pieces of land. All the stuff behind Miss Hayes' home is all old growth forest, okay? It's all old growth. If you go back there and walk, the trees are huge, okay? All those are gonna be eliminated for this 36 homes, okay? Everything is gonna be gone. We have Comerford as an example of what that looks like, okay? This here would be an excellent opportunity to be able to combine the conservation land and the land over there, do a nice trail through it, and then actually set up, because to the north is Rideout Playground. Okay, we do a pedestrian bridge from this lot over the tracks to Rideout Playground. Okay, if we had the land, we could do that in the future. Okay, and then that opens up that whole area for all the Thoreau School neighborhoods around to be able to go to the ball fields and the courts at Rideout. Okay, it's just, what we're getting out of this is nothing. And if you look at this one compared to the aerial shots earlier in this shot, when it shows the other homes around it, you just see how dense this is in comparison to any of the neighborhoods, even Center Village to the left or Highland to the right, and even Main Street. There's a lot more homes density here than in any of those.
Thanks. Bill Hereford, 102 Prairie Street. Looking at this graphic and seeing the enormous leaching field is a little bit of a terrifying prospect. And I wonder if there's another shared on-site sewage disposal plan with primary and reserve leaching trenches interspersed of a comparable size anywhere in Concord, indeed anywhere. And my other question is, the applicant indicated that snow plowing and it sounded like maintenance of the catchment basins were, and some other services were going to be taken care of not by the town of Concord, but by some other organization, which I'd be very curious to know the details of.
Mike Amster, 44 Prairie Street, Concord. Try not to regurgitate everything that's been said to this point. I reviewed the Envision Concord guidelines, and I have a little bit of trouble understanding how maintaining site grade with the natural landscape coincide with denuding and carrying away a hilltop and clear cutting somewhere between 100 and 1,000 old growth trees. Just doesn't seem to coincide with that element. A while ago I mentioned, or I asked a question about solar panels and charging stations. And apparently at that point the charging stations were in, but the solar panels, when asked a while back, the answer was we'll see. So I think that needs to be a little bit more definite. 36 homes has always been the number. One access road where there could be actually 3, sorry, my neighbors on Highland Street. Problem is, if you've got possibly 70 or so cars trying to leave and then return to that space at rush hour, beginning of the day and at the end of the day, And going through a single access onto Route 62, trying to make that turn is going to be a disaster. We've heard that the estimated time to construct is 3 years. It could be more than that. But with the construction, and this is something that I haven't heard anything about, there'll be additional disruption on an already congested main road. Remember, this one-way access. Where are the contractors going to park their vehicles? I assume it can only be in the nearby neighborhoods. There is an elementary school 2 blocks away, already congested roads. We'll certainly see an influx of pickup trucks along the neighborhood streets. This is where kids and families walk and play. What about all the large trucks carrying away trees and hilltop? They'll need to get to and from the site and be staged. This will all further increase the traffic, associated dirt and debris, general trash, and adversely affect the road conditions in the neighborhoods and on Route 62. Recall the stink that we had about leaf blowers. That will be insignificant when compared. That will be insignificant when compared with the noise, dirt, trash, and general upset that this construction activity will generate. The town noise ordinance at the moment requires quiet until 7 a.m. Be sure that no abutters will sleep past 7 o'clock for the duration of this construction. This doesn't include the noise of vehicle movement and contractors getting to our neighborhoods and to the site before 7 a.m. I especially don't recall hearing that this development will maintain the character of Concord, because I don't see how it does. The plan appears to be how many homes can we stuff into the space after the topography has been significantly reconfigured. What about the stress on town resources? Not an insignificant issue.
I'd like to see if you could curtail your remarks, given the number of...
Three more lines, apologize.
Quite a while.
Appreciate it, I'm sorry. All right, we just went through the McMansion discussion. Now we've got a McDevelopment discussion. We look to the town government to protect the town and its residents. In my profession, there are regulations which usually are a minimum level of performance. Then there is the right thing to do. This is a situation that begs the right thing to be done. Thank you.
Jeff Edgers, 50 Highland Street. I wouldn't have brought it up, except you did, and I know we're neighbors. But we've been working at this in the area of Central Village and Highland Street for a couple of years now, which Paul referenced. And I just want to have people think about what exists right now on Main Street, which is admittedly terrible traffic-wise. And what exists on Highland Street, which is a side street that would, I know you have special descriptions of how you rate streets. Having that traffic flow onto Highland Street would change the way that Highland is defined, and it would not change the way that Main Street is defined. I think there's a larger macro problem in question, which is what do we want to do about all the traffic flowing down from Maynard and Acton? It's not all every other town's fault. The Mews in Concord, and how do you deal with that? Because as I've tried to figure out how all you folks got so passionate about this recently, I think you must have problems with people on their ways cutting through your neighborhoods and cutting up to Upland. And I think that's a larger thing that we all sort of need to figure out together. Just on a macro level, I just want to ask, this is a private piece of land that's owned by somebody, and they want to sell it to develop it. And Concord takes great pride in its conservation and the land we have. And the question is, what do we do when we need $10 million to, or something like that, to offset what a private person has the right to do? What we've done, what we've tried to do, is spend almost 2 years working with the developer to do everything from reduce the number of garages to change the frontage on these different areas, to talk about where the exits and entrances are going to go, to change the buffers? Is it the best plan? Would we all love to see more trees and fewer buildings? Of course we would. I just don't know how that works. And I mean, I'd love to hear eventually from all of you about sort of what our rights are with a private piece of land that is developable. So that's.
Joanne Gibson, 88 Walden Street, is a hard act to follow. I've been sort of thinking about this land for a long time, and I think the town has been thinking about it for a long time too. It's been on the radar as a potential housing development site for at least 2 decades, because 15 years ago I asked the town planner, what do you think will happen to the Hayes land when it becomes available? And she said it will be multiple housing units, most likely affordable housing, and there would be a park. I can't go here.
Speak closer. Get closer to the mic.
Walk around with this. So, meanwhile, while there were no immediate plans to develop the Hayes land back in the early 2000s, between 2004 and 2008, Concord Commons, Warner Woods, and Concord Park were built near West Concord Center, and completely changed the feeling of the town, of the center. And this parcel of land could well have gone that same way. As part of a reaction to this building, a group of us sought to preserve the character of West Concord, and 7 citizens representing town committees, including me as clerk of the long-range plan, wrote the report, West Concord, A Call to Action. And as a result, the West Concord Advisory Committee was formed. I'm unusual. I support this PRD. I think it does preserve the character of West Concord. It is dense, I will admit that, but it isn't visually or physically imposing or impacting its neighbors, because a lot of it won't be visible. And also, what'd you say? Excuse me, let me finish. This is my opinion.
Don't shout out someone at the stand. Please talk.
I wanted to hear where she lived.
I live on Walden Street, but my son lives on Highland Street. And I have been involved in West Concord preservation for a long time. Anyway, I feel these houses are architecturally pleasing. I don't think the first ones were, but I really like what Elise has done. It provides a diversity of modest houses, and I know it doesn't seem very modest to be 800,000, but if you did by right, there could be 22 houses there, am I correct?
Actually, we don't know how many houses.
Well, I've heard it would be somewhere in the vicinity of 20. And that could clear cut, except for the fringes, all of the trees. And those would be larger houses. And they could have two car garages. I know you might keep it from happening, but there would be more leeway. So, I think that you're almost there. And I realize a lot of people are finding this painful, but I think it's just too late to derail it, and I think we should work with Mr. Ruda and Symes and the other town committees and see and listen to neighbors, but the fact that it enters onto Main Street is an extremely, it makes the most sense. I mean, there's been a traffic study, and it's at the margin. Any car that goes onto a main street is at the margin. When it goes onto a side street, it's a disaster. So this is a good plan, and I hope you'll keep working.
Sue Felshen, 19 Sunnyside Lane. Speaking from a sustainability and environmental perspective, I'd like to say I don't think the problem is that there are 36 houses. I don't think it's too many for the site. It's that they're too large. If there were 36 houses that were a little bit smaller, I think they would provide a very valuable amenity to the town in terms of workforce housing. There would be room to leave just a few more of the most mature trees. But other than that, I don't think that we should be afraid of embracing sustainability. This can be an asset to the town not to have a few gigantic houses on a large property, and also to take responsibility for our own environmental footprint and not push out $5,000 homes onto pristine land in some other community where they might otherwise get built. So I do see some problems, including that there's any fossil fuel use at all on this property, which should be all electric on site, but not the number of houses. It's the other factors that are an issue.
Melanie Koo, 140 Jenny Dugan Road. I'm one of the coordinators with the Concord chapter of Mother Front. And I wanted to ask about the prospect the previous speaker just mentioned, trying to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and that the town has already set goals to meet 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So trying to do this without any gas infrastructure and have you be using heat pumps, perhaps have this be net zero energy, is something that we were hoping that the planning board would recommend to the zoning board, because we think that the direction that the town is taking in terms of energy efficiency and sustainability is an important thing for us to push forward. Thank you.
Wilson Kerr, 20 Damon Street. I have a comment and then a question. The first comment is that I think a lot of people here have come to my first meeting tonight on this project. You guys have done a lot of work on the project, and it sounds like it's moving along. So I don't want to just make a comment that I'm against something that I'm just learning about. I do have a question though. And I would say that from cramming and seeing, it seems like they're doing the absolute maximum. 90 bedrooms is the max they could do on this project, and if I owned the land, maybe that's what I'd be trying to do, and if I was trying to sell units and develop a land for maximum, that's maybe what I'd be trying to do. But it seems something we should think about, that it's the absolute maximum they can do. Many times less is more valuable. My question is, the use, because it's going to be a homeowners association, that homeowners association will be able to decide what it wants to do on that entire property in terms of pesticide use, spraying the trees, et cetera, et cetera. My mother lives in a development in Belmont, and they negotiated for that piece of property, but they never negotiated for the use of pesticides. It abuts a lot of wetlands, and because there was no bylaws to prevent it, the question I have is, with the wetlands that are right there, has there been any discussion or prevention on the use or adoption into the homeowners board by the entire property being sprayed or the ground being treated, et cetera, for pesticide, and what would the impact be on the wetlands that seem like they're downhill from it?
Beverly Bryant, 175 Conant Street. I live on the other side of the wetland, to the left. I'd like to point out that that is a wetland there, quite a full pond when it's full in the melt in the spring. Wondering how much fuller it's going to get with this development here. Generally speaking, the entire section along the tracks is drainage. I'm wondering whether anyone has calculated the area of porous versus non-porous surface on this area to see how much runoff is going to come into that wetland. It's also, it's not a vernal pool, it's not registered as such. It does have wood frogs, fairy shrimp, we found salamanders there. It is a pretty important wetland, and I don't think this is going to enhance it. My other comment would be, I believe that the traffic study was done in June. I'd like to see that repeated in October, November time, when that would give an accurate account for those of us who sit on 62 waiting to get out of West Concord. Thank you.
So I know that I'm piggybacking on a lot of other people's comments, and I'm also new to this party. Oh, my name is Laura Davis. I live at 330 Garfield Road, and I'm also a member of Mothers Out Front. I just wanted to add some numbers to this. Mothers Out Front is all about Article 51, which does set very ambitious goals for us, 25% by next year, 2020, and 80% greenhouse gas reductions by 2050. And 9 acres of forest sequesters a lot of carbon. So I just wanted to give the number for that, which is about 30,000 pounds per acre per year. So clear cutting 9 acres, about 270,000 pounds of carbon could be sequestered, it is being sequestered on this land every year. And we're all for smart development, people being able to walk to the train. I think that this has got some really good points here, but we are pushing for the net zero because it's really important that we address the carbon emissions of this property. So I'm not going to take up any more time, but those are a couple numbers.
Okay. All right. First of all, I want to thank everyone. I think that probably set some kind of record for the number of public comments within the time frame. And I thought that the comments were generally succinct and distinct. So I know that there's a big pile of possible responses to the various questions, and I don't know how good your notes were, but if you could take a crack at some of those, we'll start with that. I mean, there are a couple of questions that I know that I can answer myself. I mean, for example, why aren't there more affordable units? That this program for the planned residential development has what you call a basic density that does not require affordable units. This is 1 unit above the basic density, where that affordable unit is that one additional unit. There isn't a technical requirement for affordability unless they go above basic density. So in theory, there could be a project with up to 72 units proposed here if they provided a number of affordable units. Of course, that would go through its own process, but just to show that 36 is actually, according to the planned residential development bylaw, 35 would be the number without any affordable unit component.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jeff Berger, I'm from Simon Associates. I'm the applicant. And I just wanted to address a few things. I'm going to let Rich handle everything else. Would it surprise anybody if I told you we commissioned a study for the houses between Church Street and Conant are more dense on a per square footage basis than our site? They are. The density along Main Street, on both sides of the street, between Church and Conant, has less land per building than our site does. We'll send that in to the planning department tomorrow, the study. It was taken from a Contour GIS maps. We're actually more land per unit than the average house along Main Street. So it's not quite the density that everyone thinks it is. It's actually less than what exists on Main Street today.
On both sides?
On both sides. On both sides.
You're including the wetlands in your...
Right. I'm sorry.
We'll just send it in.
We'll bring the study in the next meeting.
Right. But it's a point that was missed in our discussion tonight. As you drive down Main Street, you're not going to see anything behind that red dot. Everything behind here is at a much lower elevation. You will not be looking at Main Street. There was careful planning put into this so that we limited the amount of houses to keep the character of Main Street, which we worked with on the planning board. And the last point I want to make is the traffic was reanalyzed in September. I had to get those aren't really up on the website, but maybe we can get those put back up. They were revised, recounted in September. Some of the traffic decreased, some of it increased. But it was redone in September during the school year. On that note, I'm just going to let Rich take over the rest. I got all the notes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I'll do my best here. 55 Highland Street asked about snow removal, and basically it's a condominium association, and it'll be monitored by the police and fire. They drive through and say, they would contact us, and if that was an issue, we'd be proactive on that. Open space protection, Ingham Lane down the street towards Maiden was also PRD. The land near the Aspen River was protected under conservation restriction. The land in the park area was a restriction. And so with that, I'm confident that we can come to a way to protect the open space. Number of bedrooms are mentioned in the master deed of the condominium. Every house plans that are submitted by a lease and the applicant to build each house is reviewed by a special form that the Board of Health goes through and counts the rooms, etc., and confirms and signs off the number of bedrooms. And that gets recorded at the registry. So it's very efficient, and the count is immediate. In regards to Gary 57 Central, the HERS rating, Jeff needs to get that to you. We know that's on the list, and we apologize it's not there yet, but that will be provided. 20 Conan Street, why only one affordable? Mr. Chairman, you did an admirable job on that. You should be proud of yourself. Thank you. Probably haven't heard that in a while, right? 28 Conan Street, the Seward, there's a policy, and we talked in great depth on that, and basically the streetscape of Main Street overrode any additional sewage going to the town, so the priorities of the streetscape and less units along that kept it underneath the policy. Environmental engineers, again, I think that was mentioned, that's not required, we believe. 1479 Main Street, it's a significant burden on the schools. When you look at your master study, it talks about 6.4 people per dwelling. Again, I'm not going to dwell deeper, but that's a fact. It's dictated by who moves there, and there are diversity in master bedrooms, etc. So I think you may see a diversity of that type of families. 62 Prescott, large stand of trees removal is detriment. Yes, we worked hard to keep the mature trees in the park area, and then we went in great detail to meeting the goals of handicap accessibility. And we have a detailed landscape plan where Kim Ahern will provide additional detail, and many trees will be put back in to provide that as well, which is a requirement of the PRD. We're not requesting excess density, which Mr. Chairman had that, except it'll be affordable. Regards to stormwater, we're confident, and we'll provide the math, and it'll be rechecked. So we thank you for that concern, and we always make sure it's the best possible. 1414 Main Street, Paul. Yes, thank you for all your attendance. It has been about 2 years of meetings. We talked in great detail about no exit on Highland Street, and the intersection with Main and Highland, and then Churchwood Highland has restrictions from 7 to 9 and 3 to 5 at different times, whichever way the traffic's moving. So that was also discussed with police as well. Construction will be parked on the site, and we will have detailed access and designated areas for that. And everything to do with noise, etc., is all outlined in the regulations of the town of Concord. They're at the forefront of every concern and professional staff. 63 Upland, 36 units, we talked about it, that's the basic density. And West Concord is, it's a desirable area just like the rest of the town, but it's something where a great length of detail has gone into the master planning, and this site was designated as a cluster development potential in your latest bridge to 2030. And there's additional details on that aspect as well. 206 Prairie Street, Financial Committee meeting, looking at with the, I guess, elderly or older age purchasing this, would that offset something? I apologize on that, and the traffic study was mentioned by Jeff that there were additional dates conducted outside the summertime. Jack from 215 Prairie Street. I know you've been at this podium many times, and I've listened to each one of you, your comments. We went through a big discussion of business benefits to the town for the PRD, and we're still working through that. And the pedestrian bridge to ride out, that would not happen. I'm not trying to be rude. It's just that's something where it's just too much of an elevation change, and the use wouldn't justify us getting permission, is my belief. 102 Prairie Street, Bill. Leaching, the primary and the reserve is between each other, and that's allowable, both state and local. Snow plowing, we mentioned that it will be private contractors, maintained by the condominium association with a contract. And the stormwater management is the same thing. Within my stormwater report, it identifies every catch basin, describes where it is, and each criteria what to look for, and then we'll back that up with the request for a plan with pictures and street numbers, where it is, etc. So that will be done by a professional management probably. 44, I think it's Prairie also. We have a run on prairies, 4 in a row. Envision Concord guidelines. Again, I have the book here, and I was on the website for most of the day. And I compliment Gary and everybody, and John Boynton, and many others that I've met across the 25 years working with this town. We believe that there's many criteria in that section 4, 4.1, 4.2, 3, 4, that we meet some of those guidelines. So we're proud to have that conversation with you. Solar panels will be solar ready. That's a requirement of the building code. We did agree to charging stations for electrical vehicles in the garages. The one access road, we had 2. We did talk about that in great detail, but the overall street frontage results in 1, which is satisfactory per the traffic consultant. Contractor parking will be on site from a curb cut on Main Street in designated areas and not on the abutting roads. Police details are a requirement of this permit for the earth removal, etc. And we will sit down with them as well, and there'll be a detailed construction schedule before we're allowed to take 1 truck to the site or off the site. And Jeff would also be with the neighborhood as he's done in other ones. Other aspects, 50 Highland Street, the hourly restrictions, yes, there will be restrictions per the town, per the contract and the decision. 88 Walden Street, West Concord, they support the PRD. Thank you very much. I knew someone was out there. Thank you for stepping up. Sue from 19 Sunnyside Lane, dwelling too large. Again, we relied on the talents of Elise, who lives in the area, and the realtors involved with the professional staff that the applicant has brought together and discussed it with the town to provide a product that is dimensional and has function for different dynamics of your neighborhood people. 140 Jenny Duggan Road, greenhouse gas emissions, net zero energy. There's always great conversations with all the committees in town, and I know it's an encouragement every time we step to this podium. And the applicant has heard that, and that's along with the HERS energy ratings, and he'll provide some feedback on that. Wilson from 20 Damon Street, we're at the 90, yes we are, that is the maximum. That's what we did, and it basically ends up at an average number of bedrooms per unit of around 3 or less. Again, pesticides, we'd be concerned also as a condominium association, and those documents are available up front as far as limiting that aspects per local regulations. 175 Corner Street, I did walk over to that. There is a kettle hole in a wetland. That topography is in the town folders as well. That's the PRD land, open space. There is a high point between our property and that kettle hole, and there's a small little one in between. So the water doesn't get over there. It's in our own hole in the ground in the back. Traffic study that was talked about. 330 Garfield, Mothers Out Front, Article 51, and the greenhouse gases and the goals of improving at different timelines. I commend you for volunteering and getting involved into that, and I'm sure I'll learn more about that as we move forward on a personal basis. I think that's it.
So we try to grab the microphone back, I guess. Yeah, I mean, so the next step in the process for us is then, would be, at this point, to give guidance to our planner, town planner, as to our recommendations, to the zoning board of appeals. But there's been a huge amount of input and clearly public interest this evening. I didn't know if you had any further thoughts or remarks before we began that deliberation process.
I think it would be worth our while to address everything formally for the next meeting before you begin any deliberations.
Okay, so I think with that in mind, sorry?
So
The next meeting is in.
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks, September 10th.
Is that soon, is that too soon?
Yeah.
That's too soon.
You've got to distribute everything, right? You need it in 2 weeks early.
You might be able to provide information, but there would be no review by town staff within that time period.
So maybe 2 meetings from now.
4.
Okay, 4 weeks approximately, right? Would be 4 or 5.
September 24th.
Yes.
Okay,
But isn't the ZBA meeting on the 12th?
I assume that the ZBA meeting would be postponed.
Okay, so the applicant would make a request that the public hearing of the Board of Appeals be continued to the following month in October.
I will make that request.
Okay, so I think with that in mind, we would continue the public hearing.
No, public meeting.
Continue. Yes, sorry. Not public hearing. Because we're not doing the final decision. Yeah.
Jeff, if I can just be more specific about what I was hoping you would provide in terms of the open space requirement. Sure. I'll just be louder. So if you can specifically provide by the square foot how the open space meets the requirements of 10291 specifically by the square foot, like, you know, is this category, or if you want to provide, if you would like to make the argument that you meet the test in 10291, you know, notwithstanding it's not one of the examples, that may also be the case, but I would hope to see that.
Could you go back a couple of slides? Yeah. She went. Oh, right there. This one. Now, I can be pretty loud, so. Part of the deliberations that we had, originally, this was a much larger area. And what we did, originally, we had these houses lined up pretty close here. So you're right, it's not going to conform exactly. But there were deliberations between this board, us, and the abutters to move these houses further away and put some of the space that existed in here, over here. As you can imagine, if we push this way, this gets pushed that way. And all of a sudden, and we'll demonstrate that, but when you weren't here for all the hearings, I think it's important to put that in context.
I did review the entire file, including back
Great.
your application.
Great.
Here a couple months ago.
Great, because if we have to, we can.
Pardon me, is my request clear
Yep.
that you explain how your required open space meets the standard in 10291 that you are proposing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. There was a first question that said it was not answered. Your name again, just for reminder.
What if you would need to repair the septic?
Yeah, it should fail.
If the septic should fail, how would it be addressed? I thought that you tried to respond right on the spot.
I think I did, and then we just rolled the questions up.
Sure.
A reserve area is provided in the same location, and if it does fail, it would be replaced in the same outline, or if capacity becomes available down the road and the treatment plant's big enough, we're required to connect to that. The rules say you have to. It's one or the other. You know, when it does fail, you ask if there's capacity at the treatment plant. If they say no, you put the system on the site, which we have room for.
You're saying you would tie it to the town septic system?
Again, I didn't want to open up that nest, but it's in the letter from the Board of Health, and I quoted the Title V section that says you have to check with the treatment plant before you put in a system back on the ground.
I was just wondering how you would get heavy equipment in there if you had to. It's not you, was it the association at that point?
Oh. She's confused. Oh. Based on my experience with working with other condominium associations, Acton, Boxborough, et cetera, For these size systems, it can be achieved, it's just an exercise of getting residents by certain times of the day to put it back in.
Okay, I think that we're done with this topic for tonight, and we will come back in like the meeting of, what's September 23rd? 24th. Call our next item of business, which is the A&R plan. We have 3 approval not required plans, and 4 not. You can look at it, no approvals not required. Okay.
So the first plan is an A&R plan. This is actually a lot that is being created at the corner of Highland Street.
Yep.
This is just a land swap. This lot already exists, and it's creating this notch to give the property the correct acreage.
So what's the change? I'm sorry. This cut out.
I think it's this little notch.
Is coming in?
Yeah, is it going in or out?
Holding like that, so they're doing slightly this small piece of land over to this. Well, what's the required frontage there, 85?
Oh, no, they're creating this A&R lot. So there's parcel 1, parcel 2, parcel 3.
Oh, so that's
and then
a
they're
big lot.
carving,
Yeah, so they are
carving out
creating the lot, yeah.
carving out this
And the
A&R
frontage
lot.
is 85 feet there? Is that what it is?
Yes. The requirement is 80,
Oh.
80 feet in the residency zone district and 10,000 square feet.
And that's the walkway.
Yeah, sure.
That's 5-foot walkway.
Sure. So this, I'm going to say this site is made up of 3 existing parcels, 1, 2, and then 3. So as part of the PRD, these lot lines, this parcel will be combined, should it go forward. Regardless of what happens with the PRD, this is a standalone approval not required lot. It has the required frontage on an adequate public way and over 10,000 square feet of area.
Do we have wording for a motion?
No. No, you don't.
Can we do it from memory?
You can. The motion would be to move to endorse the approval not required plan of land in Concord by Williams Baragas, dated
7/30/2019.
that's the date he signed it. Dated July 25th, 2019, as approval not required because the lot has adequate frontage on a public way in the required area, and authorize the chair, the clerk, or the town planner to endorse the plan.
You make a motion that we endorse this A&R plan of Williams Baragas dated July 25th, 2019, as approval not required because it has the required minimum frontage and square footage on the lot, and authorize the chair, the clerk, and the town planner to so endorse it.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. That was pretty impressive.
Sorry.
Yeah, good memory. Exactly. That was going to be that way too. No way I can remember that much. Okay. Let's see if he can repeat the feat. It's going to get easier, right? Okay.
Dismiss ourselves.
Not very exciting.
Yeah,
This is an existing single lot at the very end of the road. And they are just dividing the lot. The existing garage will be demolished, dividing the lot so that each lot has the required frontage and area on an adequate public way.
Motion that we recommend endorsement. Move to endorse the plan of, where is this? David E. Ross Associates dated August of 2019. And because each lot created has the minimum required frontage and square footage, and that we recommend to the clerk, authorize the clerk and the town planner to endorse the plan.
Any second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? All right. Two down.
So this is the beginning of the year. You saw A&R plan for Hutchins Farm. This is up on Monmouth Street. They conveyed various, Hutchins Farm is made up of, I believe, 6 different parcels that make up the whole entire farm. At the beginning of the year, you saw an A&R plan that conveyed various portions between the different, I think, 4 of the 6 lots.
Yeah.
One of those conveyances was this piece and this piece, so that the new lot line went through this location. This was another, there was another conveyance. That plan was recorded, so those lot lines are, new lot lines are shown on a recorded plan. However, the actual title between these 2 pieces was never recorded. So there's now what the attorney feels is basically a cloud on the title. Somebody's going to look at a plan and see the lot line is here, but then the deed reflects something different.
So they want to shift it back.
So basically, it's going to stay in the original place. Yes, so that line. So this plan is an approval not required plan because it changes the size or shape of an existing lot or lots and does not affect the frontage or create a non-conforming parcel.
Okay.
And that presumably is true with this lot too.
Correct. This lot is
Ginormous.
Right, but we don't have to talk about it. We only talk about this one.
right. So the reason this is an A&R plan is because it shows conveyance that changes the size or shape of the lot, but does not affect the frontage of the lot on a public way.
Okay. So I guess I could endorse the plan. Pearly Engineering LLC dated August 9th, 2019, because it changes the shape of the lot, but does not eliminate or reduce the frontage or create a lot that has less than the required square footage. And I think we should endorse the clerk, the chair, or the planner, town planner to make that change.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
We're endorsing you for what?
Sign the
plan. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, that was 3 down.
Last thing you have is the approval of the July 23rd minutes, which you postponed.
Yeah, we didn't get the 6th and 7th, right? Okay. Yeah, so first of all, I got to do a mea culpa on the 23rd minutes because I'm the ones that held them up. Last time I said that I thought it was repetitive or something. I went back, read through it, sounded great. So I thought they were great. So I'm all in favor of them. If anybody else has comments, please make them.
Oh.
Everybody okay? Anybody?
I move to approve those minutes.
Okay, as written. As written. A second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Okay, we have approved those minutes. Any committee liaison reports? Nobody's gone to any meetings about anything? It's summertime. Living is easy. Let's see, staff updates.
This time.
Hey, I just wanted to make one little statement, which was just on housing choice, that, you know, there was an article that Dory Kehoe had forwarded through about what they did in Acton. And that's really interesting to me, just first of all, because, of course, they just did accessory dwelling unit right next door and all that stuff. But the other funny thing is that apparently the person that they were profiling that was kind of led the charge is the next door neighbor of my wife's first cousin. And they actually even share a car and stuff. So anyway, I've been in touch with her, and I thought it's definitely worth sort of checking in with them about sort of what the parameters of the public debate were, and you know, all of that stuff. So I will talk with her and come back with ideas for the board around that. So then that leaves us with public comment. Any public comments?
It was a really good meeting.
Okay.
Good time had by all.
Oh, wow, okay. I love
very
that kind of
different
public
now.
comment.
No chairs and no.
All right. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that.